Hello, everyone. It's Michele Maher here today, and I'm joined with Barb Stulhemmer this this afternoon. Afternoon, right? Yeah. Don't even know what day it is anymore. But thank you so much, Barb, for giving me your time to talk about these challenging times we're going through. We're now over 2 months that we've been isolating at home, and getting used to whatever this new normal is, looking towards the future. But really, we want to stay positive and get creative with our business and with our life and what we want to see life, our life looking like going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to just let us know a bit about you.
Yeah, well, thanks. First, Michele, thank you for doing this because we need to be hearing positive messages because the news, like you and I had spoken earlier, the news can be really overwhelming and very negative. So thank you for sharing these really positive ideas with I've listened to many of the guests that you have on there. So I really love what you're doing for us as a community. It's wonderful. So I'm Barb Stulhemmer. I'm an advisor to business owners, and I help with change strategies for growth goals for the future for the companies, and usually around tech-infused businesses and the support of the business owner themselves. So that's what I've been doing for about the last 15 years or so, and I've been in high tech for about 25 plus years. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah. Right. So that's great to know, because as we see going forward, tech is going to be it has become very important right now. You couldn't even, at the beginning of this, you couldn't find a webcam if you wanted to buy one, because they were all bought up by everybody working from all the companies that were sending their employees home.
Yes.
So, and you also teach at the college.
I teach entrepreneurship at the college, and I have a bunch of different courses in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Right. So, so definitely online is where we're going to see some huge shifts going forward. But going back to talking about the fear and things like that, I know, as we were speaking before, I've really felt the range of emotions up and down, and it just takes hearing one little thing or seeing one post on social media to set you back, starting, into that worry about the future and things like that. And I found myself really getting sucked into the fear initially, but I think the fact is, it was a huge change. It was very overwhelming at the beginning, and all of a sudden everything was pulled out from under us. Any plans you had for 2020 were totally shifted. Routines shifted, loss of control, everything like that. So
Oh, I've seen so many of my clients, kind of two different areas, because I work with companies that have technology in their companies, whether they're developing it and using that as a product, or it's the main focus of the company itself for the use inside in the systems inside the company. There's kind of two ways this goes. One is that the company itself uses it and they either can't sell it, or no one's using it right now, or the services that they're trying to give out they can't use, so they've had to shut down. And I've had to speak to a lot of business owners, and it's really challenging. It's emotional. They want to be able to support their clients. They want to be able to support their customers. Some of them in like health fields where the parents or elderly are trying to get the supports they need and they can't get it. And I don't know about you guys, but anyone that I know who works in the health industry, there are such heartfelt people. They're like, as business owners, they're almost traumatized themselves because they're worried about the fact that they can't help people because they can't open their business because they're not an essential service for whatever reason. And then I see the
Right.
people on the other side. I got business owners that are going absolutely berserk because they've got technology that they're trying to sell. They're opening up different markets, and they're going crazy on the other side. So, you know, it's almost like there's a no win either way. You either have too much and you can't manage it, or you don't have enough, and you're laying off all your employees, and it's challenging. It's heartfelt.
Yes, for sure. Right. I know the contractor that I was going to use, just right before any of this happened, I was going to start the process, and he had reached out, and at that time was when the province decided to stop any residential construction projects.
Mm.
And he didn't know what to do. He said, I've never had to lay off anyone in my business before. I just don't know. I don't know what to do. This is so, so again, he was so emotional about it, not wanting to let people go, never having to face this before. And I'm sure that across the board, there's a lot of stories like that. Yeah, as well.
There are. I think some of the things that have come out of this as far as support systems, I mean, the government themselves have been pretty good about supplying or having information coming out to us on a regular basis. But what does that actually mean for us as individuals, as a business owner, as an employee, as a parent, as, what do these mean for us? And how, I don't know about you, but there was just so much you had to learn. I have my youngest is going into university next year. It's like, does she accept? Does she not accept? Can you still get support systems? What's the chances of her getting a job to help create enough income to help support her to go away to university? So as a parent, you're going, can we really afford this? This is really the right time to be doing something? And is it the right time to not do something? You can't just take things away. So I think some of the systems I really like for business owners is if you have a chamber of commerce locally. I've noticed the chamber here in Barrie and the one in Hamilton. Those are the two that I actually have communications with. They've been really good at sending out communications. How can we help our members? What is it that you need? Here's some ideas. Here's the links that can get you information about, when you're laying someone off, how can you get some funding for them if you have to keep them on, or how can you get them more money so that they aren't without money and they don't lose their homes. You certainly don't want to feel like you've done something that makes it their loss as well. So you want to try to keep your employees happy and healthy while they're on this break. And CFIB, if you're familiar with that, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, has been really good at keeping surveys open so that they can get feedback. So a little background about them. They are a lobby group that takes small business information and ideas and takes it back to the government. And because they have such a big connection to them, they can actually make things change or happen. Right. So they're a really good voice for small business owners. So they have surveys that come out weekly now so that they can get the voice of our voice back to the government as quickly as possible. And they have all kinds of videos, interactions, they have interviews, they have articles, and they have links galore. So, if you need to be able to do this, if you have to pay this, if you need this kind of funding, this is how you go about it. And it's a lot to learn, but I'm grateful to have places to go to ask these questions.
Yeah, that's good to know for sure, because I know a lot of people were overwhelmed and didn't even know where to start with a lot of the government programs. The government came back quickly with help for everybody, but also it just kept changing. And they kept refining it as the situation and new information, I guess, came to them. So that and I think there was just a revision recently to the loan for small business as well. So that's great that they have something like that to help people interpret and keep up to date, because everything's changing. Even when they announce one thing, it then gets revised to incorporate, to make a bigger umbrella, letting in more people. So yeah, definitely that's something. And yeah, it's nice to see the government stepping in like that so quickly to help. But you've got the people with brick and mortar stores that
Difficult.
Are really faced with challenges where they cannot open, or where they serve clients, like the hair salons and nail salons and massage therapists, where they actually service clients on hands-on.
Yeah.
But right now, I think, well, the whole time at the beginning, again, it was the fear thing, but really serving your clients and serving your customers is what you need to really be doing. Keep over communicating. Over communication is definitely key as well. But servicing your clients and educating and providing information to keep you top of mind with your clients, so that they know you're there, still there for them, even if you can't service them right now in the same manner. Yeah.
And it's, I know for some of the business owners, this idea, they're still managing a little bit of the business that they can stay open, and they have to send home all their employees because they can't afford to, they can't sell their entire product or service line, only a certain component of it.
Right.
And, how can they manage income just for themselves when they're doing a huge amount? So I know some business owners, the two business owners, are probably doing the work of 3 or 4 people, because they're doing different. The one owner never does any of this work, and the other owner is going, so I have to like double check everything that happens, because the first one doesn't know how to do this, but we can't bring in another person because we we don't sell enough to actually cover their wages for that. And so it's been really challenging to be able to make those choices for themselves, and then the stress that comes with having to manage all that, 10-hour days and whatnot. It's a whole different world for business owners right now, for sure.
Right, it is. And the thing is that when you say it's all a choice, it really is a choice how you see what's happening right now as well, because there's nothing we can do about this reality, and there's nothing you can do about the future either. Worrying about the future doesn't really serve you. Right now, we have the present moment, and that's what we need to focus on. Everything external, all the external noise and distractions have been taken away and removed, so that we can actually slow down a little bit. I know like some of the people are working like crazy, but you can also, for some people, you can slow down and actually sit with yourself and just be and decide, did I like the way I was living my life before all this happened? What do I want my future to look like? What have I always wanted to do? What got thrown under the bus because we said I don't have time for that, which was always the case. I remember I used to say that a lot. And the fact is that we have the same amount of time, 24 hours in the day. Everybody has that. It's what you prioritize your time in doing. Yeah. So this really, I think we have a choice to see this as a time to reflect. And actually, there's all different ways you can look at that in terms of what you want to do.
So Eckhart Tolle, he has The Power of Now.
Yeah,
I think is the name of his book.
I'm just reading that.
Oh, okay. That's very good. It's an old book. I like the Audible because he's got a very unusual voice, and the way he speaks, his cadence is very unusual. And it kind of slows you down just listening to him speak. Anyhow, it's probably been 10 years since I read that book, but I also often think about that kind of idea when you mentioned, there's nothing we can do about the future as far as, worry. And when I recognized that if I spent time worrying about something that's going to happen in the future, what you do is you spend more time worrying. Yeah, like it perpetuates itself. You get more worried about something else. And
it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, sometimes when I get myself into a little tizzy, because I generally don't worry, a lot less than I used to when I was much younger, and my children are older, so I don't have to worry quite as much as I did before. Every once in a while, I'll have those nights when I wake up and I just, you know, your brain starts going and everything. And about a half an hour into it, I'll kind of shake myself out of it and go, there's nothing you can do about it right now. I am not getting out of bed to solve the world's problems. And if I do, I'm not going to be well enough to solve anything. So just finish off, go back to sleep. I know that for me, I do a little bit of meditation and redirect the way I think. And I usually have an opportunity to fall back to sleep. It's not easy for a lot of people, but you know, I've had the opportunity to do this over the years. I get better and better at it. And there's very rarely do I ever get sick because of the fact that I don't have enough sleep and I spend time worrying. So if you can get rid of that one thing and figure out how to do that for yourself, find those support people or someone who can help you through meditation, doing some yoga, finding your routines. This will make one thing that'll everything that you do will be easier because you'll be healthy trying to get through it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are embracing meditation now, getting through this, you know, these times. And of course, there's all kinds of online yoga. Since everything has moved to online, anybody with yoga studios, they quickly started to do their classes online, and there's all kinds of, you know, probably at all times of the day if you want as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely that's something that really just getting up and creating that routine is also something key. I know at the beginning there's definitely the I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but the temptation to stay in bed all day because, you know, just hide under the covers at the beginning. And then, but really you have to get into the routine, getting up and getting dressed and everything like that. It just sets the tone for the day. And meditation at the beginning of the day as well really helps to set the tone for your day and makes you feel more aligned and more confident going forward too. So, and now this is, you know, that we're going to be like this for a while. Things are opening up slowly, depending on what your business is. But for a lot of the small business owners who were that I've spoken with a lot, were just working from home before any of this happened. Maybe not all of their business was online. Maybe some was online and some would be live in person. Yeah. And of course it's all gone to online now, but live events are probably not going to be coming back for a bit. So
no. Well, in-person live events, no, but they certainly, yes. Yeah. But, you know, having live conferences, they're looking for different ways to engage people over a longer period of time and giving them the information that they need and whatnot. I was going to skip back a little bit when you were talking about, finding your routines and whatnot. I've been working from home for about 15 years now. So my business is out of my home. Right. So when we had a transition,
you had your routine.
my routine was here. No one else's was. Everybody else's had to move into my routine. The big one being my husband, who works for the government. He brought his office home, and he's been home for 10 weeks, like the rest of us at this point. And no, it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. When we first started, the first day he was gonna sleep in a little bit, and I just went in and said, yeah, sleep in a little bit, but let's start this routine. And I think the biggest thing to create that has made it so easy in our house was to set a routine for ourselves. So his routine was to wake up at a a different time because he now doesn't have to drive to work or anything. So he wakes up at that time, but that is his new routine. So that we change the time on the clock radio. So he gets up at the time that he can. I get up earlier so I can do my yoga. I don't have to get up as early because my daughter doesn't have to go to school on the bus as early. So, we just kind of shifted what time people are getting up and then said, this is what we've set for ourselves. And we don't trip over each other. We're not yelling at each other. There's not things that have to get done. And it has actually been a fairly easy transition for us in that sense. Maybe because I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to routine and schedules, and as a systems person, you've known me for some time. I kind of like organization and systems. So I set the systems and everybody had to fall into play for that. But it's made it much easier for us to own the space in the house that is theirs and the time that's theirs, and the arguments are a lot less that way. Yeah, I'm grateful not to have 2-year-olds at home, though. I honest to gosh, you parents, it was enough to have 2-year-olds when they went to school, or 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds, but God bless you all for having to work through this, because this is a lot of work for parents who don't usually be at home with their kids all the time. That's a job.
Yes, it is. And I've spoken with some of the people that I've done interviews with, have some children in elementary school, and so they're navigating between trying to run their business, mm-hmm. and then having the kids coming and interrupting them all the time, or also dealing with the schooling once the schooling came into play, and getting the kids online and getting them to do the work and keeping them entertained. And when you talk about the routines, that's the other key, making sure everybody knows what everybody else is doing. When you have somebody running a small business plus a spouse at home that was not at home before and is now working from home. Yeah. Like you say, just navigating that whole space and time.
I remember when I first started my business, my youngest was 2.5. And I said I'm going to be doing my business from home. And my mother was like, "Oh, that's so great. Now you don't have to get daycare." And I was just shaking my head thinking, how would anybody run a job, have a business with 3 kids at home? Like, you just can't do that. And even though my kids would be going to school, I couldn't even imagine. So I know from the outside of that, that would be a huge job on its own. And so give yourself space to recognize what a Herculean job it is to run a business or manage your career, and you're trying to do this full time, and you've got kids at home that have a full-time commitment of you as well. So again, God bless you all. This is a lot of work for parents.
It is totally. And the thing is, that's why we need to give ourselves grace and not to judge yourself, because you cannot do it all 100%. You need to take that time out for yourself, for some self-care as well. And with everybody, like, lock yourself in the bathroom and have a bath with a glass of wine or something, because you just need to have some way to kind of get away and just have that time to yourself. Especially, I know when everybody's at home, you do need that little piece. I find it necessary for myself to have a little bit of alone time to just be by myself.
Yeah. And it's true. I can remember when the kids were small, and I would my low energy time, and I have to re-energize myself as an introvert for that, as an energy person. I would be really low about in the late afternoon dinner time. And when the kids were small, Brian would say to me, "I think you need a 20-minute break." He could see it from the outside, and it's like, yes, so team players, if you have a spouse or someone who's in the home with you, if you can act like a team, it makes it easier for you to support the other person to have a little space. of their own for a small period of time. Usually it only took me 20 minutes. I would be re-energized, ready to go. I could support, the problems that were going on, or the happiness. I mean, everything takes energy. And it's important. If you're on your own, then you have to find other ways to support that energy, especially if you have kids around and you have to manage someone else's energy that's not going to give that to you.
Right.
Because they're not given, that's not their job. Their job is not to support you. Their job is to be supported by you. So you'll have to find other ways to find someone to help you with that.
Right. Yes. True.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And when this first, again, when it started, the live events were being postponed and blah, blah, blah. And now everything's postponed to the fall. Who knows? But I know some people have adapted to putting their live events online in some other manner. I think the Mompreneur conference is coming up this week as well. They've put it to online. So it's one really great opportunity from there is that you have a global audience and it's open to anybody and it's not restricted to the same physical travel distance. So a lot of people are doing that. And then I've even seen some live events where online events where there's little vendor tables. There's some kind of software out there that puts you at your little diagram of a little table. Yeah. And then people can come to visit you. And I don't know if it works like Zoom has the breakout rooms. Maybe it's the same idea. Somebody comes into a room with you and then you can do your pitch and show your products or pitch your service or something like that. And I think, so I think something like that, there's a lot of innovation that we can think of how to use these things going forward, even when live events come back. Makes sense to have both ways. Just giving yourself setting the systems in place so that you have different ways to to earn income and different ways to get clients and customers.
I agree. I mean, and sometimes we spent time looking for that, but because we weren't forced to look for it in a different way, we weren't seeing it, but now we have to. When you were talking about the Mompreneur having their live event, did they open it to everyone or is it a paid event? Do you know?
It is a paid event. It's a paid event, but deeply discounted compared to the live.
Yeah. So I'm also a professional speaker, and I know that there's, some components around that. There was one speaker, I cannot remember his name, but he had put out a speaker reel introducing all his new studio, which was all his home, right? It was great. And he went to the different places in his studio, which were just different rooms in his home. And he introduced everybody to his video team, which were his kids and his wife. And, but basically when he got to the end of the information about what he was doing, he mentioned that he goes, we'll be talking about pricing. And I just need you to know that the reason why you hire me is because of my expertise and all the years that I put into this. But don't worry, you won't pay for flight and accommodations. So he's making a point that even though you have to do this work, he still has to get paid for the expertise that he has in the past. So deeply discounting for some things is really important. Free for some things is important, although there's a challenge with doing free, and we can talk about that in a minute if you want to. Yeah. But ensuring that you're still getting paid for your worth is really important as well.
Yeah, especially now. I think the tendency was for everybody initially was putting out so much, free webinars and free workshops and everything was free because nobody wanted to sell at first. Right. Because of the fear and the panic, uncertainty and all that. But the fact is that, yes, you have to, there has to be an exchange of an exchange for what you're providing, the expertise that you have and everything like that. I think, again, it's because we thought it was going to be a temporary
I would agree.
Situation.
I know initially, and I've put out some emails to clients that have had to downsize significantly, like losing 85, 90% of their teams and whatnot,
Wow.
and you know, just the emotional challenge of having to let go of people, and then that interaction afterwards, and what do they need, and it's been really difficult, but. I think I lost my train of thought on there. We were talking about it being free.
Free.
Yeah, and you know, initially they were putting things out for free because the support system. That's where it was. I reached out to a lot of my clients saying, if you need help, because I wanted to see my clients healthy during the startup or the beginning of this, or the beginning of the challenge of this, what was going on. But you know, if we're going to do this for a year, I can't do that for free for a year, but I certainly want to make sure that the people have that support to start off with. So I agree with free, just not free all the time, because there, like you said, you need an exchange of value, and that's how economy works, and we have economies of exchange for money, and we have to be able to do this. We don't, otherwise we, you know, one farmer has one thing and another farmer has a different thing, and then if that's all you've got, then you don't have everything, and we want to have all the different things, so we have to exchange.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, so that's what it, you know, with the conference and the pricing, and I just attended another 2-day workshop that I always wanted to go to in, that was in Nashville normally. And because it was online and they were doing live stream and they were doing Zoom rooms and everything, so it was a third of the regular cost, because, and you don't have to, you know, you don't have the flight and the accommodation that you have to worry about, but they're charging you less because they don't have to pay for the physical space and the food that would be associated. So it you know, it makes sense, but it's not, it wasn't free, because you're still learning, they're still teaching, it's just not in a physical,
and there's still costs involved.
And there's still costs, well, there's still your expertise and everything, and then of course the video and stuff like that. So, and I think the mompreneurs is something like that, the same kind of idea, where it is, and then they have the different layers, the different levels, you know, and same with this thing. So the regular and then the VIP, same idea as you would have in a normal conference. And, you know, I think people were struggling with the pricing and everything, again, because people didn't want to sell. You just didn't feel right to sell when people are losing their jobs and things like that. But now we're over 2 months and, you know, continuing. And for the people producing live events, they, you know, they won't be doing them for a while, so they have to figure out some other way to
support their people. When you're an association in particular, like the mompreneurs and other associations, if they can't support the people who are inside those associations, those people, their businesses don't do well, and then the association doesn't have support system to be able to enough money to be able to support them. So it just, the whole
domino effect.
It is, so support your people. That's why the government does what they do, and the CFIB and the Chamber of Commerce that we were talking about earlier. If we can support the people that can continue to create jobs for us later on, then we have that ability to continue to have an economy where we have you know, this luxurious way of living. This, you know, we have we can buy or rent a place to live. We can live on our own or live with other people, and have those choices. I think it's, you know, it's valuable to understand.
Right. And that's why it's also important to, you know, to do whatever we can to support small businesses. And the, you know, the restaurants with the curbside pickup, I'm hoping that that's something that they continue with going forward, because even when they are open, some people, you know, people might like that curbside pickup. And I didn't know until recently about the how large the fees are for those delivery services and how much it takes out of the restaurant owner's pocket. 30% is what I heard. So
Right. Wow. Well, that kind
you
of
know.
makes sense. And you don't want, yeah. So there's a local restaurant here in Barrie that my son and I we're early morning people, so we like the opportunity to go for breakfast. And of course, you can't go for breakfast, but we would show up, and it's just the chef who's in the kitchen early morning on Saturday morning, and I'll call her from the street, and I'll say, "We're here." And she go, "I'll open the door." But having that opportunity to support, businesses that you want to continue to see be survive beyond what's going on is important, and recognizing that the money that goes into our economies locally also support our way of life within our communities. So it's important to continue to support the local people as well. I love the small business. It's important.
Yes, for sure. And so I think we're going to see some changes, obviously, in the way that business is done, and the technology is at the heart of it all. Everybody's had to adapt quickly. Some of all the big, I guess everybody on Bay Street is now, everybody's working from home. So all of a sudden the banks and insurance companies and like you said about your husband with the government, everybody's been sent home. And these are people that didn't normally work from home, but they were able to get everybody working from home, and they're able to do business and continue doing business and, continue on like that. So I think that this whole concept of working from home is going to be embraced a bit more going forward, I think, as well.
There will always be people who that controlling manager or supervisor or whatever that needs to ensure that they can look over your shoulder to see what you're doing is different than having a team of people that have, that meet regular deadlines, that are capable of fulfilling what has to get done. Who cares what time they do it or how, you paid them to get the quality of work that your expectation is. If they have to fulfill a certain time, like you have a phone line that has to be available to clients or customers or whatever, then they have to be there at that time. That makes sense. But having, someone who sits over top of you and says, well, and that's what we see a lot of times. It's the reason why they can't have people working from home, is because they're like, I can't see what you're doing. Clearly you're not doing any work. So this isn't working, and yet work is getting done, and it's getting done on time, means that you have a good team. So it'll be some learning for a lot of people.
Right, exactly. And the whole thing is with the phones, with cell phones and everything, everybody is on, you're on call all the time, even if you are employed. You're reachable, I guess, is the thing with technology. So it's not the whole 9 to 5 thing anymore the same way. It's more like,
well, yeah. I think it's like when you own your own business, and you'll know this, Michele, when you started your business, it's really important to know when to shut it off.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm reachable 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but technically I'm not reachable. I turn it off. I don't go to bed with my phone. I don't, I'm not looking for texts, and I couldn't teach my kids how to manage a cell phone in a healthy way. Knowing that teenagers often are losing a lot of sleep because they're texting or listening to their phones, and things are coming through. So I had to learn that as a parent raising children. And now that I'm a learned parent and a business owner, I've had to recognize that I had to be able to unplug to be able to stay healthy inside my business. So unplugging is important.
Yes, you're right. It is as well. But I guess the thing is, it's not, like you were saying, it's the quality of work and not the quantity of hours that you're sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
That really are important. And just the idea of not having to commute all the time, especially here in Toronto with the traffic. the traffic creates stress. So people are probably a lot happier if they can have that option to work from home at least some of the time, things like that, as well as using Zoom for meetings. Going forward, I think you'll see some companies not, doing an online video meeting rather than in person for some of the time. Not all the time again, but, just revisiting everything.
Yeah. And the fundamentals that we have in place to be able to manage great teams or to run a business, the fundamentals apply whether you're online or not. I mean, having a 2-hour meeting every day is probably counterproductive for your teams. So, having a 2-hour meeting online every day because you want to see that people are actually doing work is also counterproductive to your teams. So understanding what makes great teamwork, what makes what actually has to change and what doesn't, I think is probably the important part of how to move forward in a business.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, because some of the stuff doesn't necessarily have to change. Yeah. This gives gives you an opportunity to look at things differently.
Yeah.
And that's what in a lot of things. And we also going forward are going to appreciate a lot of things that we might have taken for granted before, without really meaning to take them for granted. Like having, sitting at a coffee shop with a friend and having a coffee in person.
I did hear some research with someone was saying they did a survey to determine what people missed the most about what's going on with the COVID changes. And someone said, what they really miss is it's just being able to buy an overpriced coffee and sit in a coffee shop for as long as they wanted or needed to. I thought that was interesting, but someone else said, I don't miss my friends. I miss the strangers. And I thought that was really an interesting looking at people as, having people around you as opposed to being somewhere and completely isolated. And we can see our friends online. I can talk to them. I go out my back deck and I can wave at my neighbors and I know that they're there. We're having a driveway meetups, people stand 6 feet apart and talk to each other in the driveway or the front walk or something like that. But it's different than just seeing that opportunity to see people bustle around and how social interaction happens as a culture. And we don't have that right now. So I thought that was fascinating.
That is. And it's just being with people, just being in a crowd with people, or somebody else told me that they really missed being at a restaurant. And it's not the food, it's the atmosphere of being there with other people and hearing the sounds and the sounds and the smells and everything like that.
And being served. I like that.
And being served. Yeah.
That's nice
for sure.
too.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. I like that idea though, missing the strangers. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Barb. That was a great discussion. And I when I put this video up, I'm going to put your information underneath the video as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Michele. This was a lot of fun. And thank you again for, bringing positivity to our lives, because we do need to see this happen regularly. We can't be focused on what can't happen. Just look at what's possible. We have lots of opportunities.
Yes, we do, for sure. And we're seeing that every day. And I love the sense of community that we're seeing, everybody coming together. That's great as well.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And bye, everybody.